I'm so sorry, ma'am, the doctor said, his voice heavy. We did everything we could, but unfortunately, we lost a child. Please try to find some peace and take care of yourself during this difficult time. Grace was in shock, unable to process the news. No, doctor, please, you have to do something, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, ma'am, the doctor replied, his own eyes misting with emotion. But we tried already, very sorry, ma. In the beautiful city of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, there lived a young man named Chime. He was a graduate of the University of Port Harcourt, where he studied civil engineering. Chime worked hard in school and graduated with good results. After his studies, he secured a job at an oil servicing firm, where he earned a good salary. Chime had a girlfriend named Grace, who was still in her second year when they met at the university. Grace was beautiful, with a beautiful smile too. They started as close friends, and their friendship soon blossomed into a sweet relationship. Even after Chime graduated, he kept in touch with Grace, knowing deep in his heart that she was the one he wanted to marry. When the time came, Chime didn't hesitate. He proposed to Grace, and they got married, beginning their life together filled with love and hope. 4 years later, their joy doubled as they welcomed 2 beautiful children into their home. Their house was filled with love, laughter, and the sweet sounds of children playing. Chime was a devoted husband and father, always providing for his family. Grace had just graduated from school, and Chime suggested she stay home to care for their children and be a good wife. Grace agreed and became a full-time housewife, pouring all her love into taking care of her family. One day, Chime came home earlier than usual, his face clouded with worry. Grace noticed immediately and asked, "My love, why are you back so early? I wasn't expecting you at this time. Is everything okay?" Chime loosened his tie and sighed heavily. "I've been fired, Grace. There was a retrenchment at work, and I was let go. I've lost my job," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. Grace quickly moved to comfort him, holding him close. "Don't worry, my husband. God has a better plan for us. He will make a way," she assured him, even though her own heart was heavy with worry. They cried together that evening, consoling each other with the hope that things would get better. But as days turned into weeks, things began to change. Grace continued her routine, preparing the kids for school in the morning and making breakfast for her family. But Chime, once a loving and kind man, became distant and irritable. He would snap at Grace and the children for the smallest things, his frustration over losing his job taking a toll on him. Grace understood that Chime was going through a tough time. She had known him for years, and he had never been harsh before. She remained patient, loyal, and continued to care for her family, hoping that this storm would soon pass. One day, as Chime was walking down the street to his house. While he was on the road, a flashy car pulled up beside him. The window rolled down, and to his surprise, it was Femi, a classmate from university. "Chime. Long time, no see." Femi called out, excited to see him. They exchanged handshakes and greetings, in the way they used to back in school. "Where are you heading?" Femi asked. "I'm just on my way home," Chime replied. "Hop in, let me drop you off," Femi offered. As they drove, they talked about old times and caught up on life after university. "So, what are you up to these days?" Femi asked. Chime hesitated before answering. "Honestly, Nothing much. I lost my job last year and haven't been able to find another one. I've been applying everywhere, but no luck so far. Femi looked at him with concern. That's tough, man. I'm working with an engineering firm here in Port Harcourt. Why don't you send me your resume? I'll see if I can help. Chime felt a glimmer of hope. Thank you, Femi. I'd appreciate that so much. They exchanged numbers, and Femi gave him his email address. Send your resume tonight, and I'll see what I can do, Femi promised as he dropped Chime off in front of his house. Chime quickly sent his resume that evening, holding on to the hope that this might be the breakthrough he desperately needed. A month passed, and Chime had yet to hear back from Femi about the job. Each time he called, Femi would tell him to be patient, saying that they were still working on it. One day, Chime returned home to find Grace crying. "What's wrong, my love?" he asked, his heart sinking. Grace handed him a letter, her hands trembling. "This is a quit notice from the landlord. We haven't been able to pay the rent for months. The children haven't gone to school this week because we can't afford the fees anymore. I don't know how much longer we can keep living like this. It feels like things are only getting worse," she said, tears streaming down her face. Chime felt a deep pang of guilt and sorrow. He tried to console his wife, but the weight of their situation was too much to bear. Desperate, he decided to call Femi again. "Please, Femi, I need your help. I'm at my breaking point," Chime pleaded over the phone. Femi's voice was calm, but firm. "Chime, I didn't want to tell you earlier, but the truth is, I don't work for an engineering firm. I don't even work a regular job. The way I make my money is different. It's not something I can just explain over the phone. But if you're serious about changing your life, I can show you." Chime's desperation overpowered his judgment. "I'll do anything, Femi. Please, show me the way." Femi agreed, but his tone was ominous. "Meet me tomorrow. We'll go together." The next day, Femi took Chime to a place called the Big Boys Association. It was a secretive group of wealthy men who engaged in illegal and dangerous activities to gain their wealth. These men were respected in society, but their riches came at a steep price. As they entered the room, Chime was taken aback by the luxurious setting and the confident, powerful men gathered there. "Welcome," one of them said. "We have a new member here, and we're going to welcome him in our special way." Chime felt a wave of fear wash over him. He pulled Femi aside and whispered, "Femi, you didn't tell me it would be like this. I'm a child of God. My faith doesn't support this kind of gathering." Femi laughed coldly. "I told you this was serious, and you said you were ready to do anything. Or don't you want to be rich anymore?" Chime hesitated, but then nodded. "I do want to be rich. I'll go through with it." The men handed Chime a jar of drink and called it their welcome tea. Reluctantly, Chime drank it. They then asked him what he wanted. "I want to be rich, richer than I ever imagined," Chime said, his voice shaking. The leader of the group smiled darkly. "Your request will be granted, but there's something we want in return. You must bring your first son as a sacrifice." Chime's heart sank. He hadn't expected such a demand. He loved his children deeply and couldn't imagine harming them. But the pressure and desperation clouded his judgment. When Chime returned home that day, Grace was getting ready for church. "Honey, aren't you getting dressed? We have a church service, remember?" she asked. "I'm not feeling well," Chime lied. "I won't be able to come today." Grace was surprised, because Chime never missed church. But she didn't press him, and she left for church with the children, leaving Chime alone with his troubling thoughts. He couldn't stop thinking about the sacrifice he was asked to make. "My first son," he muttered to himself, pacing the room. "This is too much." The next day, his first son suddenly fell seriously ill and was rushed to the hospital. Grace was beside herself with worry, clinging to the doctor's garment and pleading, "Please, doctor, do something. I can't lose my son like this." The doctor shook his head sadly. "I'm so sorry, madam. We did our best, but..." Grace's world shattered when she heard those words. She lost her son, and the pain was unbearable. Chime returned home, looking surprisingly good and cheerful. "Cheer up, honey," he said to Grace. "We've lost him, but I have good news. I got a job as a contractor for a big firm." Grace, though grieving, forced a smile. "Thank God," she said, holding on to the belief that God had finally answered their prayers. Life seemed to improve for Chime and Grace after that. Chime bought new cars, changed Grace's wardrobe, and even put her on a monthly allowance. They moved into a mansion, and everything appeared perfect on the outside. But Grace couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Chime stopped going to church and became more secretive. There was a particular room in their new home that he forbade her from entering. He always kept it locked and carried the key with him. 6 months later, tragedy struck again. Their daughter fell ill and, despite all efforts, she didn't survive. Grace was devastated. The wealth that had once seemed like a blessing now felt like a curse. Desperate for answers, Grace went to see her pastor. "Pastor, I need your help," she cried. "Something is terribly wrong in my family. We are rich, but all the money feels bitter. I've lost both of my children within a year. I used to be a mother of 2, but now childless. My world is turning down. Help me, Pastor," she cried. "My husband has changed. He's secretive and has stopped going to church. There's a room in our house that he won't let me enter, and I hear strange voices at night. I'm scared, Pastor. Please, pray for us." The pastor looked at Grace with concern. "I'm so sorry for all you've been through. I'll come to your house tomorrow for a deliverance session." The next day, the pastor arrived at their home to pray. He went around the house, praying in every room. When they reached the forbidden room, he asked Grace to open it. Grace hesitated, but led the way. When they opened the door, what they saw shocked them. Inside were the pictures of her 2 children, with the word "killed" written on them. Her picture was next in line. Grace was horrified and broke down in tears. The pastor prayed fervently, asking for God's intervention. A few minutes later, Chime walked in, tears streaming down his face. "I need to confess," he said, his voice trembling. "Go ahead," the pastor urged. Chime fell to his knees and begged his wife for forgiveness. "I was desperate for wealth, and I made a terrible mistake. I joined the Big Boys Association, and they promised me riches in exchange for my children's lives. I didn't know what I was getting into. I've lost everything that truly mattered to me. Please forgive me." The pastor prayed over Chime, destroying the dark presence in the room. Chime gave his life to Christ, vowing to change his ways. From that day on, Chime became a changed man. He started serving God faithfully, turning away from his past mistakes. He eventually became a pastor, dedicating his life to helping others avoid the traps that had ensnared him. Grace stood by his side, supporting him as they rebuilt their lives on a foundation of faith and love. Though they had lost much, they found peace in their renewed commitment to God and each other. Chime and Grace's story became a powerful testimony in their city, reminding everyone that true wealth is found not in money, but in love, faith, and integrity. The end. Thank you for watching. Please show your support by subscribing and hitting the like button.